Chapter 2. Are you doomed? I was sitting in my tiny gray cubicle trying to whip up the motivation to smile and dial the next prospect. Anyone who's ever been a telemarketer just felt a chill run up and down their spine as they read that sentence. As a 22-year-old newly married college student working a 100% commission job, I felt a sense of dread the moment I woke up every morning. I'd think to myself, am I destined to spend my days talking to people who don't want to talk to me? I was expected to pick up that phone and dial a new number at least 100 times a day. It was torture, but I thought it was necessary. Then I was instructed to talk to people who were looking for solutions to their broken financial situations. After that, I was supposed to offer them the answers they needed. I quickly noticed something odd. On paper, it would be easy to assume that my prospects didn't need a new financial situation. Most of my prospects graduated from college at least 2 or 3 decades prior, had respectable degrees and followed society's financial game plan, were faithfully stashing money in their 401ks, were thrifty and saved money as best they could, were dutifully attempting to get tax benefits by depositing money into their IRAs, and believed that extra cash should go towards paying off their mortgages. Fast forward 20 to 30 years, some 22-year-old punk was now trying to gather their financial information so his company could offer them inadequate financial solutions. Something didn't add up. At first, I dreaded my job because it was stressful and demeaning. Then I began to dread it for a much more disturbing reason. Every time a prospect picked up the phone and said hello, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was talking to a future version of me. I was on the same path as these desperate age solution seekers. I too was doing what everyone, even our parents, tells us we're supposed to do. I had already begun forming my have-it-all philosophy since that day in the Riptide, and now something told me that none of this made any sense. I was about to figure out why. My breaking point. When I was a kid, my parents fought about money. I have 8 brothers and sisters, and there was never enough to go around. My father, a German immigrant, owned his own business and would work long hours, sometimes 16-hour days. That was not uncommon for him. My dad made business ownership seem like a curse. He worked more than anyone I knew, but we barely had enough money to pay bills. He regularly used his own life as a cautionary tale. He would instruct me, son, get good grades, go to college, work for somebody else, and you'll do much better financially than working for yourself. His grueling pace and his minuscule paycheck made for compelling arguments, and his advice seemed to be the same guidance everyone else my age was receiving. So I believed him and worked hard to fulfill his plan for my life. In high school, I did my best to get straight A's, but not every subject came easy. As a result, I'd often have to burn the midnight oil just to scrape by with a B. That wasn't good enough. My dad wasn't happy unless it was an A. He meant well. He just wanted me to have the best possible chance of getting accepted into college. My hard work and persistence paid off because I got into a fantastic college, Brigham Young University, BYU. After I had served my 2-year Christian mission, I was all set to follow my dad's game plan and secure the degree that would enable me to work for someone else my entire career. Everyone around me was fed the same echoing rhetoric. Getting good grades and going to college will lead you down the road to success. Society trains us to all be an innocuous cog in a great machine. The cogs do all the work, while the people controlling the machine reap all the benefits. Within the system, precious few have the opportunity to live an inspiring, financially successful life. I went to college, and while there, I got the kind of job I thought I was supposed to have. It came with a cubicle, memos, sales leaderboards, meetings, and utter dissatisfaction. As I sat in my little cubicle, those walls started to close in on me, though. It was a gray nightmare. I could tell from the different scribbled notes on the desk that many other cogs in the machine had come and gone before me. It was a high turnover job, and there was no surprise. It was a soul-draining work. One day, I reached a breaking point, unable to find the courage to pick up the phone and make my next call. I decided it was an excellent time to take an early lunch break. I got in my 1993 Subaru Justy, a car so small I had to tilt my head just to fit my 6'3" frame in the driver's seat, and drove home. When I walked through the door of our postage stamp size apartment, I found my young wife, Colleen, in tears. At first, I wasn't sure why she was crying. Maybe it was because our rent was due in 5 days and we had already spent our upcoming paycheck. Perhaps it was because our college tuition was due in 3 weeks and we couldn't pay that either. Maybe it was because I had to give up my dream of becoming a doctor after I attempted to retake chemistry but failed. I quickly found out why she was crying. She had gone grocery shopping and was utterly humiliated when the check she wrote had bounced. I will never forget that feeling of total failure. My wife was home alone crying because I had failed to provide her with two of the most basic necessities in life, food and security. The following day, as my alarm went off, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was waking up early to go to class at BYU when I knew the degree wouldn't break my financial chains. I was then rushing off to talk to people who were financially failing, even though they were faithfully following the same path as my current trajectory. After talking to over 1,000 people, here's what I discovered about my current track. Most 401ks hold little promise or security because they're too small. IRAs save you very little in taxes and lock your money away. And paying off your mortgage creates a false sense of security that doesn't last long. Eventually, you'll have to sell, remortgage, or do a reverse mortgage in a desperate attempt to squeeze out a few more years of income. Society's game plan was massively insufficient in every way. It was time to unplug from the matrix and stop the insanity. If I did not escape, I would one day find myself on the phone with a commission-only telemarketer and wondering why I was still struggling to find financial freedom. I finally learned the truth. Money represents freedom, but the amount of money waiting on my current path would never allow me to be truly free. I knew I needed to become a self-made millionaire, and that meant I had to blaze a new trail. No such thing as luck. The term self-made millionaire is both accurate and deceptive. First of all, self-made millionaires never get to where they are today entirely by themselves. There is always an unspoken army behind every success story, whether in the form of support, wisdom, encouragement, or just insight. I get the sentiment that the term is supposed to represent. I really do. There's a certain amount of blood, sweat, and tears, hard work, and traditional investing that becoming a self-made millionaire represents. But I also think that the term does a disservice to the quest to have it all. In my decades-long study of the world's wealthiest people, I've never once seen an ambitious lone wolf who just so happened to luck into success. I've also never seen someone follow only the traditional wealth rules and actually arrive at their desired destination. Instead, here's the real truth. Self-made millionaires live and operate according to a unique set of rules, particularly a specific set of superior practices related to their money. Millionaires treat each dollar that comes across their plate differently than the rest of the world. It's not only that they have some secret no-pain shortcuts or just got lucky, they play by a distinctive set of rules that ensure their success. But what about famous millionaires and billionaires who tell you to buck the system and be a rule breaker? After all, Richard Branson once said, "You don't learn to walk by following rules, you learn by doing and falling over." I don't know Mr. Branson personally, but I'll bet he's talking about breaking the rules that everyone else is using, the rules that lead to financial failure rather than freedom. It's the rules that keep people feeling stuck in unhappy careers, living paycheck to paycheck, and fearing they'll outlive their retirement. Shoot, I'm not for those rules either. I've made my share of mistakes, but I was also fortunate to discover early in my career that there is a seldom used rule book for attracting wealth. I'm talking about the rules that enabled me to enter my 40s with 15 years of financial freedom already behind me. We all know the primary difference between the classes. The poor consume while the rich invest. The poor have a fixed mindset while the rich have a growth mindset. But is that all there is to it? Absolutely not. So where are the rich investing their money? And is that what the working class should be doing? Aren't we all putting our paychecks into the same investments, 401ks, IRAs, mutual funds, and money market accounts? Hardly. The wealthy make specific investments that set them apart in more ways than just the zeros in the bank account. These underused strategies enable these men and women to become the thought leaders of our future with fresh ideas, undeniable influence, and meaningful impact. I intend to share 5 investment secrets to awaken your financial genius and help you become a self-made millionaire. But every life-changing revelation needs a disclaimer, so here goes mine. Disclaimer: this book will not be popular with traditional financial professionals, and they will judge you for reading it. Financial planners don't want you to know this information. Chances are they probably don't even know it themselves. Your broker won't share this knowledge with you. Your CPA won't recommend this financial advice. Your older relatives may even shun this advice because it goes against what they were taught. Cognitive dissonance is real and it's very powerful. The reason is not that these folks want you to fail. It's merely that this information runs so far against our society's economic grain. And yet, I've never met a millionaire who wasn't using at least 2 of these 5 strategies in this book. Although financial professionals may mean well, their livelihood comes from offering products designed to deliver significant percentages for them and minuscule gains for you. In truth, the financial experts need you a whole lot more than you need them. I say all of this to prepare you to be criticized for seeking out this information. Licensed financial planners may condemn it as too risky and unrealistic, but to the wealthy, these are not foreign or dangerous ideas. They are common sense rules that deliver seismic returns with proper execution. Get ready to understand the how and why behind the good luck of today's wealthy. Spoiler, no luck is involved. If you are young like I was when I discovered these investments, you are way ahead of the game. And if you're already mid-career or later, there's still time. I'm honored to help be a part of your wake-up call that will transform your life and secure your future. You may be a genius. One of my primary goals for this book is to awaken the financial genius inside everyone. Suppose you implement even a few of the 5 secrets in this book, your financial outlook will be significantly better than those following society's game plan. And that makes you a financial genius. It's time for another definition. Financial genius. Noun. An intelligent person who earns, saves, and borrows money through 5 specific investments that produce superior returns to fund their ideal lifestyle. If you're 50 years or older, you may have already received an alarming financial wake-up call that you don't want to answer. You hit the snooze button, but you can only ignore a problem for so long. Suppose you stop and calculate what you've accumulated in your 401k, IRAs, home equity, and stock portfolio. My prediction is you'll discover the sum is not even close to what you'll need to retire. That is, if you've even saved for retirement at all. Statistically speaking, you're probably not feeling warm and cozy about your financial future. In fact, according to Bloomberg, half of Americans have nothing in retirement savings. CNBC has reported that according to Northwestern Mutual's most recent planning and progress study, almost a quarter, 22% of Americans have less than $5,000 in savings reserved for retirement. Another 5% have between $5,000 and $25,000. Only 16% of our fellow citizens have saved $200,000 or more. And perhaps the most disturbing percentage, 46% of respondents say they don't know how much they have saved for retirement. You don't have to be an investment finance expert to recognize that this is genuinely terrifying for most Americans. Even $200,000, a whole pile of money compared to what most have saved, won't get you very far if you plan to live for at least a few years after you retire. You could spend a meager $40,000 a year and still only have enough money for 5 years of retirement. Yikes! Add this to the fact that people are living longer than ever, and it's a recipe for disaster. The truth is, 76% of Americans are worried about retirement. And still, they start waking up to the insufficiencies of their financial plans way too late in the ballgame. The clock is ticking, and you're squandering your most crucial asset, time. A New York Post article claimed that it's reasonable to expect people to live to over 120 years soon based on longevity trends and advances in medical technology. They call these soon-to-be long-living humans supercentenarians. Sounds cool. That is, until you consider the fact that only 10% of Americans believe they have enough saved to even retire at all. The Employee Benefits Research Institute estimates that nearly half, 41% of American households with working age adults will run out of money during retirement. That means they will be forced to re-enter the workforce, rely on other people or relatives or charity, or rely on Social Security as their sole income. This is already what over half of the households age 65 and older do, according to the U.S. Government Accountability Office. Do you want to bank on the fact that you'll die shortly after retirement? And what if you don't? What then? Not to mention the exorbitant medical bills that often accompany growing older. And we have not even begun bringing up retirement homes, in-home care, or nursing home expenses. When you do the math, the truth will smack you hard in the face. I say this not to frighten you, but to wake you up and correct your course before you have to push the panic button. Start now and leverage the 5 secrets of financial genius so that you'll never need to hit the panic button in the first place. Woo! Let's all breathe a collective sigh of relief of how good the, quote, no panic button needed sounds. I want to help you avoid the panic button and get on the road to financial freedom sooner rather than later. The reason is that the longer you go without money, the more you sink into a scarcity mindset. When you don't operate from a place of abundance, you operate from a place of lack. This represents the difference between the we can't afford that mentality and the we have the means to do what makes us happy mentality. People with scarcity mentalities are misers who obsessively pinch their pennies. They are worriers constantly living in a state of anxiety. Fear replaces joy at every opportunity. The real goal should not be to pinch pennies, but to work to create more than enough to retire and use the rest to build a legacy of generational wealth. Time for a definition. Generational wealth. Noun. Placing your assets into a private endowment fund that continues to grow and generate cash flow for your family and others you can impact. This wealth lasts for generations, continuing to create value for those it benefits. You can arrive at exactly where you need to be, and it doesn't have to take decades like you've been told. In 4.5 years, I went from broke to self-made millionaire by using my custom roadmap. Picture yourself wealthy. You need the proper roadmap, and you also need suitable investment vehicles to take you on your financial journey. Just as importantly, you are the one who needs to be driving the investment vehicle, not your CPA, not your financial planner. You are the driver, not just a cog in the wheel. As the one in the driver's seat, you must also be careful to choose the right vehicle. So, what is the right investment vehicle? Well, in 1908, Henry Ford invented the Model T. And while it may have been an impressive vehicle in its day, I don't see any more of those on the road. Do you? If society's traditional financial solutions are the Model T, then the 5 investments in this book are Tesla. Notice I didn't say Rolls-Royce. The 5 investments are the way of the future, but they're also attainable for the average person who's willing to learn. The sad thing is that right now the world teaches people that real wealth is not within their reach. And the fact that well over 80% of the wealth generated goes to the world's richest 1% only makes that seem more true. What about the other 99%? And why can't they accumulate wealth? Make no mistake, I'm not a socialist. I simply believe that everyone willing to take risks and work smart should have the opportunity to create a more abundant life. The bottom line is that broke people spend money till it's gone. And rich people invest their money and understand how to manifest superior ROIs. So that means it's time for a lesson in ROI and how calculating it will soon become the most important action you take. ROI Crash Course. This book is all about return on investments, ROI. Now, don't let your eyes glaze over. There's an excellent chance you do not want to talk about math ratios right now. The thing is, there's a good chance that this same feeling keeps you from learning the ins and outs of your financial plan. It's also one of the reasons why Americans are in the mess they're in today. You are in charge of your financial destiny, nobody else. It's not your boss's or your spouse's job to sort out the money game. It's not the custodian of your 401k's job, your CPA's job, or even your financial planner's job. You can't awaken your financial genius unless you can effectively compare investment opportunities to each other. Your ability to do this simple math is key to your financial freedom. So here's the quick and dirty lowdown on ROI. Time for a definition. Return on investment, ROI, noun. A financial ratio used to measure how well an investment is performing. It is calculated by taking the total gain or loss on an investment and dividing that number by the total amount invested. Then multiply the result by 100 to determine the ROI as a percentage. There are two commonly used ROI equations, and you'll need the first one, total ROI, to calculate the second one, annual ROI. Once you calculate the total ROI, you divide it by the number of years it took to achieve those gains to calculate your annual ROI. All right, let's break this down. In fact, I'm even going to challenge you to get a pen and paper and do this exercise along with me, unless you can clearly see it written out in the physical book. Here's what I want you to do. We're going to start with the calculation for total ROI. And on your left side of the paper, you're going to write the total gain. That means all the money that you made on an investment. And you're going to put a line underneath it, which stands for the division sign. Because underneath that, I want you to write the total investment, how much money came out of pocket to support that investment. So again, at the top, you have all the money you've made. Underneath, you're going to divide it by how much money you came out of pocket to make the investment. And then whatever that number divides into it as, you're going to multiply it by 100. So write that on the right side, times 100. That is going to equal your total ROI. Now you might be thinking, okay, so I know how much money I made in total on my investment, but I wonder how that works out to an annual ROI. Like, what did I make each year on average? And that is the second equation, annual ROI. So here's what you're going to do. Underneath that, we're going to do now the equation for annual ROI. You're going to start with total ROI. Now that is the number that you got above from understanding your total ROI. You're going to write that number and put a line underneath it that stands for division. And underneath that, you're going to write the number of years. And if you divide the total ROI into the number of years, it will then tell you what your annual ROI is. Now we'll put our ROI formulas into practice with a simple example. Let's say that you invest $50,000. That's your total investment. And the investment produced a $50,000 return. That's the gain in addition to the initial investment. That's also known as the total gain. So what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the total ROI based on these two numbers. The gain, the increase that you received was $50,000. So that's the top number. Then you're going to draw a line, and underneath you're going to have the $50,000 original investment. And then whatever that number is, we're going to times it by 100. So 50,000 gain divided by 50,000 invested equals 1. Multiply it by 100. That is a 100% total ROI. Translation in English, you doubled your money. You took 50,000 and you turned it into $100,000. Now let's say it took 5 years. That's the number of years for your $50,000 investment to earn that additional $50,000 that you brought in for that total 100% ROI. With that information in hand, you can now calculate your annual ROI. So you're going to take your total ROI, which is 100. You're going to divide it by the number of years, 5, and 100 divided by 5 is 20%. In other words, over 5 years, you doubled your money, but you basically averaged a 20% annual ROI each of those 5 years. Pretty easy, right? It's easier to leave the total ROI percentage as a whole number when calculating the annual ROI rather than convert it back into a decimal. This simplifies the equation, so you just divide the total ROI as a whole number by the number of years, and the answer is your annual ROI. Done this way, there's no need to multiply the answer by 100. I know math isn't everyone's favorite subject, and you may have thought that you escaped it forever. However, if you want to be financially free and retire without worry, there's no escaping it. Fortunately, all the math you'll find in this book never gets any more complex than this. Here's one more example to get you warmed up to the idea of doing the math again. Let's say in this example that you invested $80,000. That's your total investment, and that investment produced a $160,000 return. That's the total gain above and beyond what you invested. Calculate the total ROI based on these two numbers. Well, you're going to put a $160,000 gain at the top. Underneath it, you're going to write the $80,000 investment. And when you divide $160,000 divided by $80,000, that number equals 2. Times it by 100, and now you have a 200% total ROI. Nice. Another solid triple-digit ROI. Now let's say it took just 2 years. That's the number of years for your $80,000 investment to earn that additional $160,000 that brought you that 200% total ROI. With that information, you can now calculate your annual ROI. So the top line is going to be your total ROI, which is 200. Underneath it, you're going to divide it by the number of years, which is 2. And 200 divided by 2 is 100% annual ROI. In other words, you made 100% on your money the first year, and you made another 100% the second year. ROI is a critical fundamental for creating real wealth. In the next chapter, we'll explore society's top 5 outdated investments, and then I'll introduce you to the 5 underutilized investments that the wealthy use to get wealthier through superior ROI. When it comes to money, most people are running blind. It's time for your eyes to be open with the truth. So consider this your wealth wake-up call. All right, let's wrap it up with Chapter 2 checkpoints. Number 1, I was on a traditional life path doomed to remain financially chained until I realized there had to be a better way. 2, you are squandering your biggest asset, time, but it's never too late and you're not doomed. Number 3, society's financial game plan is broken, outdated, and incapable of producing the retirement you need. Number 4, there's no such thing as luck when it comes to wealth. The rich just have a different plan than yours. And 5, you are in charge of your financial destiny, not your parents or your peers, and definitely not your traditional financial planner. And finally, number 6, there is a viable solution to society's broken game plan. ROI is the key to that plan by bringing you wealth and financial freedom. Quote time. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. That's quoted by Seneca, or you might know it from the popular band Semisonic in that song, Closing Time.